Good evening and welcome. You're listening to Open Your Mind Internet Radio. You
nearly weren't.
You nearly weren't. You have myself, Alan James.
And you have myself, Stephen George. Wow.
Well, we had a bit of a crash with the software, and that's one of the subjects we're going to be talking about shortly, about the software and getting an upgrade with the software, because our software is beginning to get more and more flaky as time goes by. So one of the requests that we have to raise donations is to actually get new software so we can kind of avoid having that problem. But anyway, good evening and welcome to Open Your Mind. It's Sunday the 17th of November 2012. Thanks a lot for tuning in. Before we get started, I just want to say something very quick. Happy birthday, Steve.
Thanks very much, and happy birthday, Alan.
That's it. Yeah. Same month,
yeah.
Exactly. Now, we were planning to have Claire Cullinan on the show. Last week, Claire couldn't make it because of personal problems, and she contacted us after the show and apologised and guaranteed that she'd be on this week. And obviously we haven't heard anything from Claire since then all week, so we don't really know what's going on. But we do have a guest who's kindly decided to come back on. If you remember, a few weeks ago we had a chap on called Clive De Carle, and he's into alternative health. And we said we'd do a part 2 with Clive because he had so much information that we just didn't have enough time to talk about it. So this is going to be part 2 with Clive. Now, Clive's in the green room at the moment, and he'll be with us in a few minutes. But as usual, we have a few things to go through first. So the first thing we'll do is we'll find out what the communication channels are, Steve.
Okay. Mary, if you're sitting comfortably there, you know the drill.
The communication channels are email info@oymireland.com, by phone 046 927 1212, and you can also contact us direct through the OYM chat room.
Thanks very much, Mary. That's the OYM chat room. You can go to OYMradio.com, and in the left-hand corner you will see the live chat button. You can click on that, log in with your real name or the makey-uppy one, and you can talk to yourselves. You can share thoughts and opinions with the rest of the people in the bar or the lounge. You can put questions in there for our guest this evening. We'll also be monitoring the MSI chat room as well for questions for Clive. And if you want to ring in, you can do so from outside of Ireland. Anyway, it's 00353, but the phone number is 046 927 1212. Alan.
Excellent, Steve. Now, I don't know whether you probably haven't noticed a difference with our audio, a little bit of difference. We did get in the new microphone, so we mentioned it last week. Thank you very much for the people who did donate towards the microphones, and especially the big donation that we got off a listener that we won't mention his name, but he knows who he is. But the microphones are in. We're actually using them at the moment, and we are very happy.
Yes, we are. Can someone please just let us know if there is someone out there listening on headphones? Can you just let us know how we sound, and if we do actually sound in stereo? If we're in stereo, we should be, shouldn't we?
We should be in stereo. We should be. That's the way it's been set up. But
Alan should be in the left ear. I should be in your right ear.
Should be.
Ever so slightly.
Ever so slightly, just a little bit. But we're experimenting, as I say, the new mic. So as long as the levels are okay with the music, that's the main thing. That's the important thing. So again, thanks very much for the donations. And it's just uncanny that the software actually crashed just at the start of the show. And this has happened. We were doing some testing during the week, and myself and Steve, and it crashed about 3 or 4 times while we were doing the testing. So it's definitely time to get an upgrade on the software. So again, you know, if you have a few washers, or if you don't have any money, if you want to click on the ad, if there's any ad on the website that you fancy, we get a few shekels from that as well, and it all goes towards just kind of building the studio and getting the good equipment in, so we can do better quality radio shows. And also we have the reliability as well, which is the important bit, which is not what we're receiving at the moment with the software. But there you go. Okay, just a couple of things we're going to go through before we get our guest on. Now, we have, don't forget also that we have the bumper stickers 5 for 5, CDs and books available on the site, which you can also, if you buy them, it'll go to support OYM. Now, we are going down our supply of the books, how the banks are screwing you and what you can do about it. We have very, very limited numbers left. I mean, basically about 5, I think, left. So if you do I mean, it's a fantastic book, great read, great information. So now's the time to get it before we run out, because when they're gone, they're gone. We don't have any more. So just to let you know about that. Now, the thing I want to touch base with is the Dáil has defeated independent TD Luke Ming Flanagan's motion for the legislation, legalisation and regulation of cannabis in Ireland by 8 votes to 111. Now, I just think that is...
Are we surprised?
It's just really, really narrow-mindedness, really, really is. Now, I'm not too concerned about the whole legalisation of cannabis per se, but I think the legalisation of cannabis for medical trials, for cannabis oil, for curing cancer, is more important. So even if they said, look, we won't legalise it, but we'll give you a licence to do medical trials to make cannabis oil to cure cancer, well then that would be a step in the right direction. But they didn't even, we didn't even get to that stage.
No, we didn't. I mean, let's be honest about it. It was never going to happen. 8 votes to 111. 100, as I said when that issue came up on, I believe it was Facebook, I did say that the 111 who voted against it, they know exactly how medicinal and the advantages of this plant. They know exactly what it can do. The eight people who voted on the other side, they just they haven't a clue. Really, the 8, but the 111 who voted to keep the plant, a plant given to us by nature, to keep that illegal, obviously they know the qualities, and they know if it gets out there that Big Pharma won't be too impressed.
Who's the TD? Is it Lloyd Barrett or David Lloyd Barrett or something?
Yes, I do know the chap. It is Barrett.
Barrett,
something.
Okay, the independent TD. I'm sure somebody on the chat facility will tell us his full name, but he did a great talk regarding the cannabis and the legalisation of cannabis and the pros and cons of alcohol and cigarettes and the whole shebang. I thought he did a very great talk, but again, we're living in the dark ages. I mean, if you remember what Bernadette Bowen said about the labelling laws regarding the fluoride in the toothpaste, I mean, Ireland is 15 years behind America in labelling laws. So, and I believe also that Aisling Fitzgibbons, who is the girl against fluoride, made a statement there on Facebook saying something about that. If they don't get the fluoride out of the water, she won't be able to bring it to the attention of the government, or she won't be able to challenge it for another 5, 10, 20 years, something like that.
Yeah, but sure, they've already, I believe it was this week, they've had a private member's bill or a private member's vote on fluoride and removing it from the water supply. And I think it was a minister, Alex White, remember the name? Someone suggested to him that it should be removed. If they're not sure about it, then maybe it should be removed on a trial basis. And he's on record as saying he wouldn't take that risk. He wouldn't like to take that risk.
That's right, yeah.
But they had the vote anyway during the week, and as far as from what I've heard, they voted it down. So basically what they're saying is, no, we're not taking it out of the water. So all we can do, I mean, I think Aisling is probably going to take it to the European Court, because we're one of a handful, less than a handful of countries that have it in the water, and I believe we're the only country in Europe where it's mandatory. So we have to be forced. It has to be put into the water, the poisonous.
I know, yeah. So just going back to what happened with Ming Flanagan and his
Richard Boyd Barrett.
Oh, well done, yeah. Richard,
thanks, Willie.
Richard Boyd Barrett. Just come back to Ming Flanagan. What was said here was, speaking about his motion this evening, Flanagan cited a number of health reports that say the drug is not as harmful as is widely claimed, and pointed to the potential tax revenue that legalisation would result and bring in. Now, it would bring in a lot of tax, and it would take it off the streets. And, I mean, alcohol and cigarettes alone are drugs. Now, I know that people out there will say, oh, well, it's addictive and all that. Well, I suppose everything is. Alcohol is addictive. Cigarettes are addictive. Medication, codeine tablets that you can buy over the counter can be addictive. Some people have what I believe an addictive personality, and there's some people that will take it to the extreme, and it's like anything. If you take too much of anything, it's going to be bad for you. I do think that if it's policed and it's controlled, then again, you have to take responsibility for yourself and not the state. That's just the way that's just my own personal opinion anyway. Now, the other thing is the Taoiseach had, Enda Kenny, had a speech at the Fine Gael National Conference in Limerick. Now, I'm not going to read out the whole speech because it's too long, as you can imagine being a politician. But there's a couple of things on it which I thought were very, very poignant and very interesting. And it says here, I know that many of you have yet to see the evidence that progress in your day-to-day lives. Yeah. You're living with lower salaries, higher costs, worried about the bills, the rent, the mortgage, the children and our elderly. And I said, yes, it must be very hard to survive on €200,000 a year for Enda. The quality of his champagne must be terrible these days,
Rotten. Worse than champagne.
Must be terrible, And he says, you can't run your homes and businesses by spending more than you take in. No shit, Sherlock.
Please.
He's a clever man, Yes, there's too many people still out of work. Yes, there's too many people still leaving the country. Nothing said about the actual letters that students got suggesting that they leave the country, by the way. And he said, but something, there's a change happening. Yes, everybody's waking up to kind of parasites.
There you go. That's the change.
That's the change, and they're waking up and realising that you're a bunch of parasites and we need to get them out of government. Job creation is now at its highest level in 5 years. Did you know that? Job creation at its highest level. The live register number has fallen every month for 15 consecutive months. That's progress. No, that's emigration. I think we can safely say that's emigration. Because, as I say, the students got letters suggesting that they move abroad. I mean, talk about how to reduce the live register. Just bribe them about going abroad. Suggest that they go abroad. Corporate donations have effectively been banned, obviously, unless they have it in an unmarked brown padded envelope. Equally, we said about protecting our children by having our constitution recognise them as citizens in their own right for the first time, and plans to put children first on a statutory footing. Well, there you go. So they've given new laws. Well, that's the thing, Steve. Remember the video we talked about last week about the guards taking your woman?
Yes.
And it's like they think it's a done deal already.
Of course they do, yeah.
Even though I believe Cathy Sinnott, ex-MEP, is still fighting that in court as far as I know.
Sure, you know the way things work over here. It doesn't matter if it's going to court. Sure, look, we'll just do what we want anyway. That's the cheek, for want of a better word, of the Irish government, or the policy enforcers, aka the Garda Síochána. We just do what we want anyway. But even though this is getting fought in the courts, it doesn't really matter, because we know, because we're psychic, that it's all going to go, this way and not the other way. So therefore, we're just going to go around and lift people off the streets against their will, even if you don't consent. Doesn't matter. We're going to do it anyway, because sure, we know the result. I don't know. Maybe they are. Maybe the guards are psychic, and people in the HSE who are going out lifting children off families. Maybe they are psychic, or maybe they're just so well clued in. They know exactly what's going to happen and what way. Maybe whatever Cathy Sinnott is doing at the moment, maybe she's wasting her time, because at the end of the day, no matter how high she goes, it's a done deal. Maybe it's gonna go the way the state wanted to go anyway.
Exactly, yeah. So we just have to play it by ear. Now, the other thing here, Enda Kenny sworn in as a new Irish Prime Minister by President. I just want you to remind you of this, that when Enda Kenny was sworn in, he said Enda Kenny was the 13th leader of the state and has promised an open and transparent government made up of 10 ministers from the Conservative Fine Gael with 5 from the Socialist Labour Party. Transparent government. Now, since Fine Gael and Labour have been in, have we had a transparent government?
Yes.
Do we?
Yes.
Explain, please.
Well, let's put it this way. They're so transparent, we can see right through them. We know what they're up to. We know the game. We can see what they're doing.
Right. Okay.
If that's not, I mean, obviously, it's a variation on the word transparency. I mean, it's obviously not the transparency they promise, but you know as well as I do that, you know, anyone who comes into power, when they're going around knocking on doors looking for, you know, your vote, and they will promise you the sun, moon and stars. And I think, was it Michael Noonan is already on record as saying something along the lines of, sure, all politicians lie, you know, and sure, that's part of the game. And if, you know, if you believe what they say, well then sure, you know, more fool you. Exactly,
yeah, you have to, I think, you know, there's so many people waking up now and realising what's going on, that we're aware of what's going on, and now the false promises are coming out. The TDs are beginning to give the false promises again, because they know the election is around the corner, and they're beginning to kind of do the backpedaling, as I'm sure you've all heard it over here anyway in Ireland. But there you go. That's the way things are working at the moment. Now, obviously, as I say, we have Clive De Carle coming on shortly. But how was your week, Steve?
I'm glad you asked. My week has been kind of non-eventful, really. I have been watching what's going on just on Aisling Fitzgibbon on her Facebook page, all the stuff that she's been doing, and the progress that she's making or not making, depending on what way you view it. And also the Irish chap, the scientist Declan Waugh. Declan, I think I may have mentioned last week, was asked to write an article for one of the Sunday broadsheets, and he wrote the article. He actually posted the whole thing. I do apologise if I'm repeating myself again, but he did post the whole article up on Facebook for all to see, the same article that he sent into the paper. I can't remember which one it was. I don't read them anyway, so he sent in the article. They butchered the article. They took out all the valid information, all the good stuff, you know, and they just kind of printed the rest. So whatever appeared in the broadsheet was kind of a watered down version of the original article. So whatever people may have gotten out of the article and being, you know, information was kind of lost, was left on the editing room floor, as they say. So Declan say he's put up the article on Facebook, and he's doing others. I think he's sending out letters. He's got copies of the letter that he wrote, say, for the paper, and I believe he's sending a copy to every TD in the country. So I'm just kind of just watch that with bated breath and see what happens. And what else? Not really much else. I've been kind of paying passing attention to Ison. I've seen some information on Ison there during the week, and you know it's kind of still on its trajectory. We're supposed to be able to see it there with a binoculars. Like there was some binoculars that we should be able to see it with. I don't know. It was 10 by 50. I think you said
10 by 50.
10 by 50. Yeah. So we should be able to see it with them. Obviously not on a night like tonight, because as the old saying goes, you wouldn't put a milk bottle out on a night like tonight. Anyone who's of a certain age will know what that means. Anyone who's not will obviously not know what it means. But yeah, so we're kind of waiting to see what's going to happen with the whole Ison thing. I believe it's making steady progress. It's still on its trajectory, and it's probably going to crash into the sun, and we're all going to die. But no, other than that, now, you know, I haven't really been doing too much during the week. So yeah, apologies. I'm going to have to fluff it up for next week. How's your week?
Well, not too bad. Just been busy doing a bit of research, looking at stuff again, checking out the grounding information. I did find a multimeter on Amazon for £39, which is an ideal. They don't just give you the meter, they give you the extra bits and pieces, the grounding cables and stuff as well. So it's not too bad. Check it out if you're looking for a grounding multimeter, so you can check it. I did a homemade cable, which is, you know, an earth cable attached to the plug, and then I have one of these engineer straps that you put on. It just attaches to the strap. So I haven't really got around to actually spending a few hours just sitting down while I'm working with it connected. I've just been running around the place, so I will try that, you know, probably during the week and see what happens. But we will talk to Clive about that shortly, because Clive has a good bit of knowledge regarding the grounding side of things. He's been doing it for a number of years, I believe, so we can talk to Clive about that. But nothing else really that I've been working on, just again studying and researching and looking at stuff and just doing some webby stuff really, nothing else. Dr. Carol Roslin did say to us that if you have a pair of 10 by 50 binoculars, she Skyped us and just said if you have a pair of 10 by 50, you should be able to see Comet Ison, and there seems to be a lot of footage on the internet there regarding Ison. Now, as to what's going to happen and when it does the perihelion and all that kind of stuff, I haven't a clue. I don't know. We haven't heard anything about the power grid, although the power grid was supposed to shut down in America on the 13th and 14th. I haven't heard any place in America being shut down, so maybe it was just a psychological experiment, to get people on edge, get them on worried, along with the National Geographic blackout documentary or dramatization. Maybe it's just, maybe that's why they did it, I mean, these are the games that you play. So, again, keep an open mind, and until it happens, then, there's no point worrying about it. I mean, I just see this as information anyway. Personally, I think Steve's the same. We just see it as information. We don't let it affect us in any way.
There's no point in dwelling on it.
No,
if it's going to happen,
not.
it's going to happen.
Exactly. It's just
all we can do is be aware of it.
It's just information, Okay, we're going to get our guest on now. And now Clive De Carle. Clive was on the show a few weeks ago, and we had so much information that we asked Clive to come on and do part 2. So that was going to be on the cards anyway. So we appreciate Clive coming on short notice, because we only gave him about an hour's notice, and it's great that Clive could make it and come on, and we will crack on now. Clive is a health researcher, a speaker, an educator who recovered from what the doctor said was irreversible rheumatoid arthritis after some 27 years. Since then, spurred on by seeing health issues like cancer, heart problems overcome naturally, Clive has studied subjects like health, cures, spontaneous remission, nutrition, minerals, vitamins, hypnosis, and a host of other health-related subjects that doctors are not taught of in medical school and know next to nothing about. So, loads of information that Clive has covered, and we gave out Clive's website the last time he was on, but we'll go through all that again. But good evening, Clive. How are you?
Good evening. Very well, thank you. And yourself?
Not too bad. I hope that introduction's okay. I hope that covers the majority of things that you do, or is there anything that you want to add to that?
Well, one small correction. I didn't recover from arthritis after 27 years. I recovered from arthritis 27 years ago.
Okay. Sorry about that. We'll correct that on the sheet. We'll be putting it on the notes. But thanks again for coming on the show. Again, we said we'd do part 2 with you. And I have a number of questions that I wanted to touch base with you as well. And obviously now that we have talked off air before we went live about the grounding, then, we can actually talk about that. But since the last time you've been on the show, is there anything new that you came across, that anybody contacted you, or if there's any new information that you can tell us about?
Well, just this evening I was looking at heart attacks, because we get a lot of advice about what to do regarding avoidance of heart attacks, and I'll just tell you a few of the things that I've been looking at this evening. Over 50% of heart attacks have been preceded by the person being angry.
That's interesting.
And that's a very high proportion. It just shows the waste that is anger. Now, another group of people who suffer from heart attacks are people who've just been diagnosed with cancer. In the first week after a cancer diagnosis, the chances of that person getting a heart attack increase by 25 times.
Wow. And obviously stress-related as well.
Well, I mean, what else is it but stress? They've just been given the most stressful news of their life, and it's immediately seen in the heart attack rate. So I've got a wonderful book, sort of a hypnosis book for doctors called Hypnosis in Practice, where it explains to doctors how they should be breaking bad news, how to do it without catastrophically affecting their life chances.
So you're basically talking about the bedside manner to a certain extent.
Well, yes. Unfortunately, the problem with doctors, they start out early in life having the noblest of intentions, and then because they're so rushed off their feet, they have to see patients in such quick succession that they can't give the care that they would want to give. And as a result of that, they're forced to cut off empathy to some degree. And so doctors are not well versed in understanding people and emotions.
Well, I would say to a certain extent, probably not just doctors really, because I spent a good bit of time in A&E this week with my son because he had a hairline fracture on his finger, and I spent 3 hours in one hospital in A&E and then 2 hours in a fracture clinic in another. And the nurse that was putting on the actual bandage on his fingers, she was a little bit rough. And when my son kind of, said, ouch, there was no kind of sympathy or empathy or apology. She just had this kind of stern face on her, like a matron. How dare you shout out in pain type of thing, And of course, my son is not a fan of taking tablets and painkillers and stuff like that as well. And he'd prefer not to take them if he can. He'd avoid them. Although he's young, he's aware, that they're not the best thing that you could do. And of course, the doctor, when I was telling her this, she kind of ignored me and spoke direct to my son. And he said that, and she said, "Well, you should be taking your drugs. If you're in pain, you should be taking something." And I just, I wasn't going to go into one because it was a waste of time. These people, they give you 10 minutes at a time, and it's what would you say? It's a kind of swing doors in and out, 10 minutes, that's it. So I wasn't going into the lecture or anything like that. I just left her to say what she had to say, and then we left. And then, because we can make up our own mind. We don't need her telling us what we need, what we can and what we can't do. But, and that was interesting, being involved in the health service. And, as you say, not just the doctors, but obviously with everything that goes on, they get desensitized. Now, I'm not saying everybody's like that. I'm not tarring everybody with the same brush. I'm just talking about my experience and what I experienced and what I seen.
Clearly, if the people aren't vigilant, that's what can happen without them even noticing. With your son, it's worth knowing that the herb comfrey has a couple of other names. Knitbone and boneset are one of them. And if you put on comfrey ointment or essential oil of comfrey or comfrey oil and oregano oil, that should drastically speed up the knitting of the bone.
Wow, okay. That's we'll have a look for that. Will that be in a local health shop, do you think?
It's possible, but it's always the thing is of getting the highest quality you can find. If you happen to have a herbalist around, a medical herbalist, because they're the only ones now that are allowed to really sell the good stuff, support your local herbalist and get the stuff from them.
I wonder if it's possible that we can find out if there is one locally. I know we have a local health shop in the local town, all right, but maybe she would know actually.
I'm sure if you put medical herbalist onto Google in your area, you'd find one. Yeah,
I think we'd have to track one down. That would be handy to know, Clive. Now, just to kind of changing subject a little bit. We talked a lot on the last show about rheumatoid arthritis, which is what you had, and how you treated it. Now, I did speak to a friend of mine who is suffering from osteoporosis, and she was saying that, well, that's completely different to rheumatoid arthritis. And obviously, I don't know whether you have come across this or whether you have a different ointments, or I don't really know whether you have something for osteoporosis, or is that the case where you can actually do something with rheumatoid arthritis but you can't do anything with osteoporosis?
Pretty much everything can have a positive outcome. One of the things that I thought was sort of, if you like, incurable were people with kidney problems on dialysis, where the kidneys have shrunk to the size of a walnut. But I now discover that there's a doctor, I'm sure more than one, Dr. Wallach, for instance, has found ways to reinflate kidneys in some cases and get people off dialysis. So osteoporosis and essentially every health problem, be it arthritis or whatever, at the bottom of it, you've got the same problems every time, and those problems are in some cases a poisoning from the toxins in our environment or food, but more often just a simple mineral deficiency or a vitamin and mineral deficiency, but a nutritional deficiency in one way or another. And osteoporosis and arthritis have a similar key mineral that's usually lacking, which is magnesium. You know, the doctors would say, well, calcium is the important one here. But in actual fact, to make calcium work properly, to be able to assimilate it into your body, you need magnesium. And a lot of people do, remarkably well by taking a lot of magnesium. And although you can take it orally, too much moves the bowels. So the best way is to take a little bit orally, but to rub most of it in as magnesium chloride spray. It's sometimes called magnesium oil, just straight onto the body as much as possible. Get the whole body quite wet with the stuff. I've had people, for instance, with arthritis. I had somebody not too long ago who I gave them some magnesium to rub on their sore knees, and after 2 applications, they told me that they were bending down for the first time in 7 years.
Wow. That's incredible. Oh, we're getting a little bit of an echo there. That is something else. Now, the magnesium spray that you spray on, because as I said, the family member, before we went live, a family member is suffering from osteoporosis. He has 2 hips and he can barely walk, but according to our social services over here in Ireland, he's fit for work, which is ridiculous. But there you go, that's just the way our social services is over here. But he is rubbing in magnesium. How often do you do it? Do you do once a day, twice a day?
Either would be fine.
Once in the morning, once at night, something like that?
Yeah, you certainly could. It's whatever suits one's life. Some people are hugely busy. There are some other things one can do about osteoporosis, and I'll run through a couple of them. Borax is very, very interesting. Our ancestors would have been very familiar with borax. They probably would have added it to their washing to make clothes clean. Vets and farmers are very familiar with borax. It has all sorts of uses to keep your animals healthy. You can sprinkle it on bedding that's got parasites on it to get rid of it. But borax is particularly interesting. It contains boron. That's the main thing. Borax is a naturally occurring sort of mineral, and boron is amazing because not only does it drastically help with osteoporosis, but it also does things like removing toxins from the body, particularly fluoride. So anybody who's in a fluoride area, if they have a bath with a little bit of borax in, they'll be able to get toxins out of their body. And some people even find that they find bits floating in the bath that have literally come out of their body. I would recommend anybody check out borax. A good place to read about it is on the site earthclinic.com. Earthclinic.com is a brilliant source of unbiased information. And borax first came to my attention because of a doctor called Rex Newnham who moved to Australia and got arthritis just a few months after he arrived, and he felt that it must be a mineral deficiency, and that maybe there was something missing in the soil of Australia that he'd been getting when he was in England. And he was a soil biologist, so he had all the equipment to research that, and very quickly he found that where he was living, the soil was very, very low on boron. And he started studying boron, and he studied that the country with the lowest rate of boron in the soil was Jamaica, because of all the sugar plantation. It had stripped all the boron from the soil, so the vegetables they were growing were low on boron. And interestingly, he noticed that Jamaica, the people of Jamaica, had the highest rate of arthritis of anywhere in the world. He then decided to look for the country with the highest rate of boron in the soil, which turned out to be Israel, who curiously have the lowest rate of arthritis in the world.
That's interesting.
It's astounding, actually. So when 5 years ago, when I first started using borax, it came in containers with no warnings on it. Now there are sort of the equivalent of skulls and crossbones on packs of borax, and because they don't want you to have it, because people are discovering that it can be the path to health for people with things like arthritis and osteoporosis. So if you put, say, a quarter of a teaspoonful in a litre of water, or an eighth of a teaspoonful in a litre of water, that would be a decent start, and one can build up from there. But read about it. Put borax into earthclinic.com, and you know, this information is all about educating yourself. Now, other things for osteoporosis include making sure that your body is properly alkalized. That's eating enough vegetables, essentially, drinking enough water, and remembering to breathe. The best way to get the alkalinity balanced in your body is to breathe. And people tend to shallow breathe. People don't tend to be sitting up straight. I mean, for instance, if one's at a computer, one's generally leaning forward slightly, and in that leaning forward position, it's very hard to get as much oxygen into your lungs as it normally would be, so people tend to breathe less.
Meditation.
I'm sorry?
Meditation,
absolutely. I mean, yeah, stress is going to upset you in every way. It's going to raise pH, it's going to dampen the immune system, it triples the rate that you burn vitamin C, and many of the minerals get used at a tremendous rate because of stress. So, I mean, what are the solutions for stress? Well, acceptance might be number one. Accepting what is, and not worrying about the future, not dwelling on the terrible things that happened in the past, but just accepting the now and what is, and being grateful for whatever we have. And there are a number of people who claim to have cured all sorts of diseases by just accepting that attitude, one of acceptance. And you know, when I was studying some years ago spontaneous remission, and the cancer patients, for instance, who'd survived against all the odds, I started looking for, well, what were the common factors? What had they done right, these people who'd survived? And it was so obvious as to what it was. Is they said, well, you know, at the beginning I hated the cancer, and I felt very sorry for myself, and hated life, and couldn't understand why it was me, and all that. And then they got to a stage of acceptance, and then gratitude. So eventually they accepted it. Okay, this really has happened, get over it. And then gratitude, because they knew when they got better, because it was when they decided, when they realized how their life had to change. So they realized that the cancer has happened for a reason, or whatever illness it has happened for a reason, and it's to learn. And once you've learned, well, what are you going to do with that knowledge? Well, knowledge acted upon properly is wisdom. And I think why people are getting ill these days is so that they can recover and teach others how they did it.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, we have a bit of an echo there. Can you hear that echo?
I can hear you and the echo, but it's fine.
Yeah. I'm echoing too.
Okay, we might have to disconnect and reconnect again. Just, do you want to do that, Steve?
Yeah, just bear with Clive. I'm just going to disconnect and call you straight back.
Okay.
Okay, sometimes that happens with Skype for some reason. Since Microsoft took over Skype, the quality has been terrible. Are you there, Clive?
I am.
Excellent. See, that's Skype. Since Microsoft have taken over Skype, the quality of the software, and it upgrades itself when you don't really want to have it upgrading. So we are trying to suggest to people that they move over to a package called UVO, which is OOVOO.com as their website. And the quality is better, and it's peer-to-peer. It's not centralized. So maybe, we'll send you up the link for that if you want to check it out, just in case, because the quality is better, and you can have up to 12 video cams on it rather than Skype where it's limited, the free version is limited. But anyway, getting back. Yeah, one of the things that we had Dr. Lorraine Day on our show a couple of times, and Dr. Lorraine Day talks about the juicing and everything else, but what she realised, which is what you're saying as well, is that if your state of mind has to change as well. There's no point juicing, curing your cancer or whatever disease you have and you cure it, and then carrying on with the same lifestyle.
Yes, absolutely. It's a complete package. If people come to me for advice regarding how to get their health back from a really serious disease like cancer or something, I say to them, "Want to get your health back? You've got to view it as a full-time job. That your every waking moment really has got to be devoted to it." And if you put all your time into it, it can happen very quickly. People don't realise how quickly recovery can sometimes occur. And Lorraine Day's story is a really good one.
Yeah, and I think Bernadette Bowen is following that track as well with a new book she has out regarding the mind. It's not just about the food, but it's the mind as well. And I know you said that when we were off air that you know somebody that literally just changed the whole kind of thought process, which helped them.
Yes, there was this woman overcame Crohn's disease after many years of battling it. Simply with meditation, acceptance, gratitude.
Brilliant. I mean, it's great. I mean, the meditation, I mean, I do meditate myself, and I do find it not just relaxing, but it's about me time. It's taking time for yourself to relax. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't understand meditation, so I'd recommend that they go on YouTube or wherever and understand the science behind it and why we do it and the benefits of it. Because when you understand why you're doing it and what it's all about and the benefits of it, then you'll understand how to do it. So I do think that's important. But we have a lot of questions coming in, I believe, at the moment, Steve. So I'll pass over to you, and if you want to ask Clive? Pass
it over. Go on, pass it over.
Pass it over.
Yeah, we just got some information from John McHugh. Thanks, John, on the MSI chat. John sent us in a link to a website there called www.irishherbalist.ie, and I'm guessing from the title of the link, all the information that we need in relation to local herbalists can probably be gleaned from that website. So we're going to check that one out. We also have a comment in from Chris. I do believe, Clive, the last time you were on, you were mentioning magnesium. Chris was saying, where is it now, that his lady wife was suffering with cold hands. And thanks to your information, he said, please tell Clive that my wife is using magnesium and her cold hands are much, much better. So that's also good and positive. The first question, actually, that came in was... funny enough, from Chris, because Chris said that he has a dodgy hip, and have you any suggestions for a dodgy hip?
Well, there are so many things to say there. Other than magnesium, one wants to make sure you've got all the minerals, so the fulvic minerals and a good, safe multi-mineral. Then you want to look at the essential fats. So I would want to ensure that I was eating, assuming you're a meat or a fish eater, lots of young oily fish like sardines, mackerel, herring, real salmon if it's not farmed, unpasteurized dairy, Waitrose sell unpasteurized butter. You can get raw milk usually locally if you find out where they're supplying it. Markets often sell it. Jersey for preference, but unpasteurized is important. Unpasteurized cheese. If you're going to eat meat, eat the fatty stuff, but only from the finest source. Don't trust a supermarket, I don't think. Hemp oil, flax oil, any of those if they're very fresh. Hulled hemp seeds are absolutely delicious from that perspective as well. Chaga tea. The chaga mushroom is a very useful immune system booster. And remember that whatever the problem you're trying to get over, what you're really trying to do is to boost your immune system, because as we're self-repairing mechanisms, why aren't those hips repairing? Well, they would repair if they could. They haven't forgotten how, but if you're not putting the right fuels in, the right ingredients to make a whole knee or a whole hip, the body can't do it. So what are the factors? All the minerals, all the vitamins. You want a decent source of vitamin C, unless you're eating a lot of raw fruits and veg. Vitamin D is incredibly important, particularly in winter. And anybody who's noticed in the past that things get worse in winter should immediately look at a vitamin D deficiency. Running out of sun, you're running out of vitamin D. And vitamin D really is a fabulous cure-all. The people with the highest levels of vitamin D have something like 80% less cancers than the people with the lowest levels of vitamin D. And similar figures, 70 or 60% for depression, heart problems, all sorts of things. Vitamin D is crucial to the whole picture. I'd be making sure that you're getting enough sulfur. So I'd be eating lots of onions and garlic, supplementing preferably with MSM or any other form of natural sulfur. Then silica, I'd be considering silica as a repair. Those sorts of things. Oh, by the way, as a painkiller, black cherries, or organic black cherry juice, or better still, dried black cherries, which one can buy reasonably inexpensively, organically, are a better painkiller for most people than ibuprofen. And ibuprofen, otherwise known as Nurofen, is horrendously dangerous. There was a study recently that infants given 1 Nurofen a month increased their asthma rate by 5-fold.
Wow.
That's amazing. Just what you said there. I'm actually trying to take notes because you were saying so much, and I just got the pen, and anyway, I didn't get to make me notes. But you said there about the ibuprofen, how dangerous that is, and I can testify to that because my wife, whenever she, obviously, earlier on, like long time ago actually, when you'd be taking painkillers for certain complaints, ladies' complaints, and she used to take the ibuprofen. And what used to happen to her, she had an allergic reaction, and I think her throat used to get very tight. Her eyes swelled up, almost bulging out of her skull, and she didn't know what was going on. It was only a long time later that she was told that, yeah, you have an allergic reaction to this, so stay away from it. But just going back, Clive, when you were saying about supplementing with vitamin D, now we did hear that a long time ago, basically corroborating what you were saying there, that vitamin D is so important. But something that you said the last time you were on, that if people are just going to go into their local supermarket and go along and look at the shelves and have a look at all the different vitamins and see the cheapest vitamin D and buy that one, that's a complete waste of time. Would you agree? I know you did say before that you get what you pay for, and if you pay pennies, you're going to get rubbish.
Well, luckily, actually, vitamin D is very, very cheap in the first place, and you very seldom actually see bad vitamin D. There are a million other supplements, I could say, that you really want to be very careful about. But luckily, vitamin D seems to be pretty generally good. The problem usually is that the stuff they sell in the shops is too low a dose to really have a decent effect. I don't know whether on the last show I mentioned how vitamin D used to be measured in milligrams and is now measured in IUs.
I think you did actually mention that. You did touch on that, and I do know from, I think even before we had you on before, I heard about that when you are buying the vitamin D, that the maximum recommended dose is so low that you may as well be throwing it in the bin as taking it, ingesting it. And when I bought vitamin D before, the recommended retail price, I was going to say, the recommended dose was 1 capsule per day, and that was it. So, of course, based on the research I had done, I was taking 5 in the morning and 5 in the evening, really, really overdosing on the stuff. And, from what you see on the information leaflet, it looked like, if you take too much of this stuff, it'll kill you. But happily it didn't, and I'm still here to tell the tale. But you did mention that there about the IUs, so it's even a lower dose than before, isn't it?
Years ago, they were taking much higher doses than are advised currently by the doctors. The doctors advise 400 IUs, which is maybe the equivalent of 5 minutes in the sun. But I think to get a good therapeutic dose, you want the equivalent of quite a lot longer. The best thing to do is to have a vitamin D test done to determine what your levels are, and if they're low, which almost everybody's in the UK would be at this time of year, then have another blood test a month later after having supplemented and see whether it's up to a good level or whether you haven't been supplementing enough or too much or whatever. But where the old literature used to suggest that there was an upper limit to vitamin D, but now it is very rare for people to reach an upper limit and have problems. It can happen. That's why it's best to be tested. But most people can get on well with 50,000 units once a week, for example. Some people take more. But since I started taking vitamin D, that was the end of colds and flus.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. As I was taking it for a while, and while I was taking it, there was no ill effects from the amount I was taking. And colds and flus that were kind of prevalent at the time, this would have been about 12 months ago, I didn't get them. But you were saying before, Clive, about, if people want to find out what kind of levels they have in their body, there is a test that can be done. I believe it's, from what you said last time, it can work out a bit expensive, but it's a hair test. Can you just, for people who haven't heard the information before, can you just maybe just give us a quick 101 on the hair sample and how they analyse that?
Yes, that won't help with the vitamin D though. The vitamin D test, the doctors will do it for you if you can persuade them. They used to do it without any problem at all, but now when they're managing their own budgets, they want to hang on to the money. But I believe online you can get it for about 40 quid. The hair mineral analysis generally costs about 60 quid, and that's very useful, assuming you haven't dyed your hair. If you've treated your hair in some way, then it's not going to work. But assuming your hair's untreated, you send off hair samples, and they set fire to the hair and then examine the residue, because vitamins can be damaged with heat, but minerals aren't. So you can just burn all the hair away and just examine what's left, and it shows you what you've been excreting through your hair over the last 3 months, and therefore showing you, generally speaking, what minerals have actually been assimilated into your body to be able to come back out again. And it's pretty accurate. It shows the minerals in relation to one another, and shows the toxins, like if you've been near a busy road, you might have cadmium, or you might have lead, or whatever. And it's a pretty good test. It depends who does it. There are various different companies who offer the tests, and so a little bit of research is good.
Yeah, no, that's good stuff, because I was actually speaking to my mother there this morning, and I mentioned it to her previously. I did. I texted her previously in relation to the hair test and the magnesium, because I say she suffers badly with arthritis, has done for years, and she caught the tail end of the last show you were on. So actually she rang me this morning and was just touching base on all this stuff, and that's why I said I knew there was something about the hair test, and I said, you know what, I listened to the podcast of the previous show, and I get the information for it. But obviously I don't have to do that now, because you just kindly give me that information again. Clive, I've just dropped a message in the Skype there for you. I'm not sure if you we were gonna maybe take a quick break if you fancy one.
Whatever you like, I don't mind.
Okay, well, we'll go over to, we'll have a quick musical break just to break up the show a little bit, and we'll see you after this.
All right.
Join UnitedWeStrike.com radio on the second Saturday of every month for our live international radio marathon. Don't buy, don't comply, ask why.
Okay, and we're back. That was a little bit of Alan Carner and the Hollywood song. And I think we do have a link to Alan Carner's website. That's ETUK. We do have it on the site there. Brilliant album called Providence. If you want to check it out, download it and listen to it everywhere. Alan.
Right, you said you have a few more questions. Before we move on, there's a few more questions that you want to ask Clive. So
Yes.
do you want to go through them?
Yes, we do have a few more questions, and I'll just jump straight into these. If you get a chance, says Jim in the UK. Good evening, Jim. Nice to have you on board again. If you get a chance, can you ask Clive about healing with turpentine? And Tony, I'm going to get his name wrong, Tony Pantalescro video on the subject. And Jim also sent us over a URL, a link to that video as well. So Clive, healing with turpentine.
Well, yes. Very, very interesting and ancient healing remedy.
Is this the stuff you use with your paintbrush?
Yeah. If one wants to give it a much nicer name, one could call it pine gum spirit or pine spirit gum. It's you can literally tap a pine tree, and you don't necessarily have to destroy the tree to do it. And turpentine. Sorry, let me get my thoughts around it. You don't need to take very much of it. Possibly an eighth of a teaspoon in honey. The effects, gosh.
Now take your time. I mean, there's no pressure. But it's just funny. I've smelled it. You know, when you're washing out the paintbrushes, turpentine. If it's one of the same things. But I never would have guessed that it could be ingested. That's kind of a new one on me.
Well, I know, certain individuals who might not have a house might, you might see in the street, take methylated spirits, apparently. Meths, So,
it's quite different.
Yeah. But I would class meths as the same as turpentine.
No.
Turpentine is very similar to kerosene, and both are very effective. I mean, it will end candida for most people, and it may be that actually candida wasn't the problem. A lot of people think, oh well, I've got candida, that is the problem. But why is the candida there? Well, the candida, its job in the body is to eat things, and it may be that the real problem are parasites and worms, for example. And turpentine will kill worms, and it may be that now the worms are dead, the candida comes back into balance again. It's good for muscle and joint pains. It has a number of uses. Often people put maybe half a teaspoonful on a sugar cube. The people who are experts about it are indeed, as your caller said, Tony Pantalescro. And anybody who hasn't found Tony Pantalescro yet is in for great joy, because he's a genius herbalist, absolutely fantastic. And YouTube will find him, Tony Pantalescro. There's also Dr. Daniels, who a doctor also who specialises in turpentine and how to use it. So it sounds frightening, but actually historically it's been used for a long time, and a lot of people put some in the bath. But if you do put it in the bath, you've got to mix it up with the water really, really well, because you don't want the neat turpentine on your body.
Well, the whole idea of the worms in the stomach thing, I was watching a documentary about this, and the statement or the comment that was made was that the worms can live in a pH balance of up to 11. Which is very high. So if turpentine treatment can actually get rid of the worms, that means that must be an alkaline then rather than an acid.
I don't know.
Okay. Just on the subject there. Sorry, Clive. On the turpentine, someone just posted up here. Jim just posted up, it must be genuine turpentine, not the turpentine substitute or white spirit. So it obviously has to be got from a proper source. So I'm guessing then we might just put a little warning out there for people who are listening. Don't go to your medicine, or don't go to your shed and get some white spirit, because it may not be suitable.
No. It's incredibly important as to where you get it from, and probably the best place to get it from. Just hold on, I'll tell you. Yes, apoticaria.com, APOTICARIA.com. They're a French company. You only want it from a company that's, if you like, individual people who go out and tap the tree themselves. There's no way you want to buy it from the hardware store unless you're 100% sure that it is 100% pure and everything like that. But as I say, apoticaria.com are the famous company for the high quality stuff.
And is there any restrictions if somebody was to buy that from that company? Is there any restrictions importing that into the country?
I wouldn't have thought so. Okay. I wouldn't have thought so. I don't know. There's an interesting use for turpentine also, which is you get an old towel or an old bit of cloth and you heat up some salt in a pan or in the oven and put that in the middle of the cloth or the towel. You might want the towel a little bit wet, and then you pour some turpentine onto the salt and roll up the cloth and put it on the skin. So if you've got any aching areas, you just put it straight on. If you've got any open wounds, you pack it around the wound, not on the wound itself, but around it. Very good for removing aches and pains. Be aware it might be quite hot, might feel hot on the body, not just the heat of the towel, but the heat of the turps. You can always wash it off.
How do people, I'm just wondering, I was just thinking there, how do people come up with these ideas and using these products to do various things? Where does the idea come from?
Well, the shamans would say it was the plant itself. The plant or the tree told me in a dream or when I was meditating or whatever it was that it had these properties. All the shamans tend to say the same things, and the herbalists from a very, very long time ago, of course, were aware that the pine tree had incredible properties. You can use virtually every part of the pine tree. The pine bark is great to prevent heart attacks and things. To lower blood pressure and a million other things. Every part of the pine tree is useful, and so I think the herbalists have known about pine and turpentine, which comes from the pine trees, for ages.
Wow. Okay, that's
thousands of years, I should suppose.
That's where the information comes from. Okay. Do you have any other questions there, or we move on with the grounding?
No, I have a question. Where are we now? I'll have to move back up my list. Yeah, Tom has a question. Can you ask Clive about nascent iodine, and if the Celtic salt is a good source of it If the Celtic salt is a good source of the nascent iodine, and is it expensive?
Nascent iodine is one of the better forms of iodine. One of the reasons it's better is that it's pretty much tasteless, so you can give it to children orally without them refusing to drink the stuff. But it is quite expensive. I think something along the lines of 25 or 30 quid a month, which is more than most people want to spend. I use Lugol's iodine, which is much, much cheaper. In fact, it's more like 70p a month as opposed to 30 quid. A huge difference. The only problem is it's got that iodine taste to it. But for children, one can rub it on the skin and get it into the body that way. But nascent iodine, very important. All the iodines are hugely important. If you haven't got enough iodine, you can't transport oxygen through the cells properly. And if you can't transport oxygen through the cells properly, the person's body would tend to get fat as a result. So anybody who's overweight might want to think maybe they're low on iodine. Anybody whose eyebrows are thinning at the outside, anybody who's got rough parts on their elbows, anybody whose body temperature is all over the place, particularly cold hands and feet. If you wear socks in bed, you're quite possibly low on iodine. No,
I certainly don't wear socks in bed. I can absolutely say, hand on heart, that both Alan and I must be deficient in the iodine, especially if it refers to one's weight. I could do it losing a few pounds, or actually more than a few pounds. Clive, you did mention the Lugol's iodine. Now, we heard that mentioned before previously, and is it correct to assume that it's the same stuff that you would buy in a... Oh, I can't even think the name of the shop, but where you would buy fish, it's actually something that you would use in a tropical fish tank, this Lugol's iodine, isn't it?
I don't know. It could be. I don't know. No idea.
Okay.
Okay.
No, I did actually hear that. I heard that before, and I did hear that you can get it in this.
But the place to get it from, and here is a blatant advert, is my company called Ancient Purity. We sell the best Lugol's iodine on the planet. For probably the cheapest price you could possibly imagine.
Yeah, well, we'll be definitely getting your details at the end of the show and getting your website out there, Clive, because you have a lot of good stuff on your site there. We'll be definitely doing all them links then at the end of the show, definitely. Steve, there was a question there from Billy Ray, I think, that you wanted to touch base on.
Oh, I have that here. It's on the list to be asked. Yeah, Clive, Billy Ray is wondering... any vitamins recommended to improve one's eyesight, and any vitamins recommended for thyroid? And he has in brackets cold hands and feet that get cold and hot, so not always cold. So eyesight and thyroid.
For the cold hands and feet, iodine, magnesium. For the eyes, vitamin C, high doses, like 10 grams a day if it's pure powder without any nasty stuff added on. Astaxanthin is incredible for the eyes. It also means that if you take astaxanthin for 3 weeks before you go on holiday, you can take twice as much sunshine as you could before. If you take a gram of vitamin C every hour, you can take a lot more sunshine than you otherwise would be able to. I'd also be eating bilberries if you can get them. You can get them dried. You want sources of lutein, which one can get if you've got any marigolds in the garden. You can take the flowers and make tea or a tincture with that. That gives you lutein. Vitamin D is very important also for the eyes. And water. Because the eyes are mainly water, you want to make sure you're properly hydrated.
Well, you need to be drinking it all the time anyway, I find, because you need to... need the fluids for your body. You need to rehydrate.
Well, yeah. I mean, let's say you wake up and you're depressed. Try drinking a whole litre of water and see whether that solves the depression.
Wow. I love these little nuggets of information. Now, I'm not saying that I'd be doing that. But if I know somebody that does wake up, you wake up in the morning, sometimes you're not happy, but I wouldn't call it depressed. But for people who are feeling that way, maybe that would be a great thing to do for them, just to try it rather than go down the Prozac route and start taking medication.
Well, medication would be a crazy way to go, and there are so many interesting ways to get rid of depression. At the end of the career of a Canadian psychiatrist, Dr. Hoffer, they examined all his psychiatric patients. He was a psychiatrist. And they looked, first of all, at schizophrenia, which was one of his specialities, and he'd cured 90% of his schizophrenic patients, which I think compares fairly nicely with the NHS's cure rate of schizophrenia. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's 0. He corrected 90% with vitamins, primarily high doses of vitamin C and all the other vitamins, and high doses of niacin, vitamin B3. If you're taking vitamin B3, you have to start very slowly and build up, because it gives you a body flush, which can be a shock if you take too much.
What a body?
A body flush.
Many of the mental illnesses can be cured.
That's, okay. This is information is like gold dust. You know, it really is important to know about this stuff. We all should know about this stuff, and I know it's kind of, maybe our ancestors, maybe the shamans, they obviously know about this stuff, and whatever ailment it is, they know what to take for it. And all this knowledge has obviously purposely been taken out of the system so they can sell pharmaceutical drugs, which don't work and have side effects, really, I'd say.
Well, it's a great business, isn't it?
It is a great bit. Well, I've seen it during the week firsthand. Great business to be in if you're in pharmaceuticals. Steve?
Right, okay, the last comment, I know you want to change subject ever so slightly, so the last comment, it's not even a question, it's from Tom. Tom has tried the fulvic and the Celtic salt, and he said the salt makes the food lovely, and the fulvic acid gives you energy. Cheers, Clive. And that's from Tom, so yeah. Good on you, Tom.
Good. Well, you know, with the fulvic minerals, the most commonly reported effect is more energy. And similarly, actually, iodine gives you more energy and clearer thinking with both products. Clearer thinking, very important.
What about the likes, just while we're on the subject of, you know, curing things, what about the likes of people with a low libido, or what about something like hormone replacement therapy? Because I know there's a lot of women that actually go through the hormone replacement therapy process to take drugs or whatever they're prescribed. Is there a natural vitamins that they can take to replace taking pharmaceutical drugs?
Well, to balance the hormones, for a start, you need iodine, because the basis of all the hormones is iodine, along with cholesterol. So, you know, anybody who's on a low-fat, low-cholesterol diet, give it up immediately and start eating real fats, and the hormone situation is almost bound to improve. There are some superfoods. Maca is a good one, M-A-C-A. It's sort of a root from South America. It tastes quite nice. Sort of sweet sort of taste to it. I would advise, again, going onto Google, you know, whatever problem one's got health-wise, if you put the name of the problem and the words natural and cure, the answers are pretty much invariably on the front page of Google. Well,
what you don't want to do is to go into a website that could be leading up a garden path. So, you know, having good recommendations are always good, you know?
Well, you know, luckily, you know, right now, on that first page of Google, maybe 2 of the sites will be spoilers put out by people like Quackwatch or somebody who'll tell you that whatever you're thinking of will surely kill you. But the vast majority of them are good, and there are some websites which are just particularly excellent for information purposes, and I'll run through them quickly, because really everybody needs to know where the good information is. And, you know, as I mentioned before, earthclinic.com, naturalnews.com, Mercola.com, doctoryourself.com, CureZone, they're just a few.
That's brilliant information. We'll actually get them out. Now that's on the podcast anyway, you know, people can actually go back and listen in and write them down and, you know, go to the sites and check them out. Steve?
Clive, I must have missed this one. You mentioned something earlier about a supplement for the eyes, and it's one of the listeners was wondering, could you maybe spell out that? So, they have it down here, something like Astanx.
It's astaxanthin, so ASTAXANTHIN, maybe. I'm going to have to write it out myself. Astaxanthin.
I'm sure, again, if someone was to put that into Google, obviously Google will come up with the proper
It's ASTAXANTHIN, astaxanthin.
Can you just spell that one last time, Clive? Well, I'm just, after typing it into one chat room, I want to just type it into the other one here.
AST.
Yes.
AXA.
Yes.
NTHIN.
Brilliant. That's brilliant. Okay.
Excellent stuff. All right, Clive, I'm just watching the time there. So let's talk about grounding. Before we went live, we just kind of had a quick chat about it. And we mentioned it last week. There is a great documentary out there done by a filmmaker up in Alaska, and he's in a village and he starts the grounding process. And we talked about Clint Ober, who's the guy who kind of came up with this. And once they came up with it, I mean, obviously our ancestors knew about it. Rediscovered it. Yeah, that's a good way of saying it. Rediscovered it. But you've been aware of this for a while. Tell us what you've been doing regarding the grounding.
Well, I heard about it a few years ago, and I contacted Clint Ober, who's a really interesting guy, and we talked, for a couple of hours about it. And then he wrote a book which is very, very interesting, called Earthing. And for those who don't know, Clint was a cable guy, and he'd made a lot of money after he'd sold his underground cable company. So he understood a lot about grounding and earthing out cables. And he was sitting on a park bench one day watching the passers-by, and he suddenly had this flash of inspiration. He thought, they're all wearing rubber-soled shoes and they're cut off from the earth. Surely we were born to be barefoot. And he knew that there was an electrical connection between the body and the ground if you touch it barefoot. And so he decided he'd make a sort of bed sheet. He reckoned that for at least 8 hours a day we would have been walking around, and then the rest of the time we might have been comfortably in the cave, sleeping, not grounded on straw or whatever it was. So he reckoned that if he could ground his bed and sleep grounded 8 hours a day, that would be the equivalent of sort of normal life when we were barefoot. So he noticed improvements in the way he slept and other factors. So he started making a few of these and giving them to his friends. And I've got the book in front of me, and it says 85% of people who tried it for a month slept more quickly, went to sleep more quickly. 93% reported sleeping better throughout the night. 82% experienced a significant reduction in muscle stiffness. 74% experienced elimination or reduction of chronic back and joint pain. 100% reported feeling more rested when they woke up. 78% reported improved general health. So I bought a bed sheet, and I tried it out and didn't notice a thing. So I started, whenever guests came, I'd have them sleep on the sheet and see what they thought. And some people went, wow. But my numbers weren't the same as Clint's. I didn't find that 100% reported feeling more rested when they woke up. I didn't, and quite a few people didn't. So, but nevertheless, that's not to cry the fact that for many people it's made a huge difference. Ulcers that weren't healing suddenly healing. Clint, in his book, has a report of giving it to autistic children for a month. And something like 26% the parents of the autistic children reported what they considered to be a 26% improvement in the behaviour of the autistic children over that period on average. So, clearly it works.
I'll be just curious to find out why. Say, for some people like yourself, you felt no change or no difference from actually grounding yourself, but yet other people do. That in itself is a little bit of a mystery,
Yeah, I don't know. I was so interested in the subject that I went out and bought a voltage meter, so you can measure the human body. And while I was experimenting with that, I tried standing in front of a array of electric plugs. And I found that if I was standing a foot away from it, that I was reading 25 volts through my body.
Wow, that's quite a lot.
Well, I was surprised.
Yeah, because, on the actual videos, they talk about maybe 5 volts at the most, if they're near electricity or they put the hand over an extension lead. But 25 volts is quite high.
Well, I was quite surprised. And you get a similar thing by holding an iPad on your lap. There's some voltages that aren't right. So when I work, I often have a grounded pad under my computer, so I can rest my arm or whatever on the pad. And so if you're running whatever voltage, you touch the pad and instantly all the voltage drops out of you.
That's strange, but maybe because, I mean, you're obviously a healthy guy, Clive, with all the stuff that you do, and maybe because you are healthy that there's nothing to be fixed, so you don't feel any difference.
I don't know. I really don't know the answer to that one.
That's just, that's just my theory, I think. Maybe the healthier you are, the less effect you're going to get from the grounding.
Yeah, maybe.
It's a possibility. I still think it's a good idea for people to try it. I mean, if you are a person that's sitting down at a computer on a regular basis, or even just go out in the back garden, obviously I wouldn't recommend it now with winter and living in Ireland and the UK with the way the weather is at the moment, but in any time that you get a chance to do it, I would definitely say go out and have a walk in your bare feet. Now, one of the things that I mentioned before we went live, and for some people, they probably remember the movie Pretty Woman. And in the movie Pretty Woman, Richard Gere, she brings Richard Gere to the park, and he's supposed to be in some kind of meeting, and she gets him to take his shoes off, and he's walking on the grass, and he's looking at it, and he's very kind of amused at this fact that he's walking on the grass with no shoes on. And I don't know whether that was supposed to be subliminal or whether it's just one of these things. But it's just uncanny that he's actually walking on the grass with his shoes off. If people know the movie, they'll know what I'm talking about. But that was interesting. That I just remembered that when we talked about grounding and walking. But I mean, the fact that you didn't really experience anything in the grounding, are you still doing it? Do you still have the sheet and you still have it there anyway?
I've still got it, and I use it sometimes, is the truth of it. I made the mistake of buying a half sheet. The only sensible way to do it is to get a proper fitted sheet that's the whole sheet. And the half sheet's really annoying. If I move around at night, it gets scrumbled up. So I made a mistake buying a half one.
Okay, and have you noticed, because I know there's one person on YouTube who said they actually did buy a full sheet, but after a few washes, the actual lining or the silver inside the actual sheet started to wear away and break up.
Well, I've had mine for years. I mean, I use natural washing, powders or soap nuts, and I don't use a harsh commercial washing powder, so that may be the difference. But mine looks as good as new. I have used it a lot.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I'd recommend people trying it. I mean, the grounding, we talked about it last week. It's basically a plug, an earth cable, and then a crocodile clip on the end. And if you just attach it to you can hold it in your hand, or if you have an engineer's strap which you can put on your wrist.
Well, subsequent to what we were talking about last week, when you had the strap there for demonstration purposes, we actually have, from when my wife was pregnant, we had an old TENS machine at home, and there's some of these pads that come with the TENS machine, like adhesive pads. You often see them used in hospitals. They're not that expensive, and you can buy them in pairs. I think you buy them in pairs anyway. But we had one at home, and what I did was I kind of cleaned it up a little bit. Once you kind of rub some water on it, it regains its stickiness. I actually got a plug, and I got a little bit of earthing cable, connected it to the plug, and connected it to this little adhesive pad off the TENS machine. And I checked it with a multimeter for continuity. I checked the earth pin, and I checked the pad, and I got a reading, so I knew it was working. I told my wife about it because she was kind of complaining there the other evening of a sore foot. Now, as you know, Alan, she has a plate. She does have a titanium plate in her ankle. And I just said it to her, what I heard about the grounding, because I'd watched the movie, she hadn't seen it, and she tried it. She tried it there. She was sitting down watching the TV. She tried for about maybe 45 minutes to an hour. And then she had to get up, and obviously, when you have kids, normal routine kicks in very quickly. So she tried it anyway. She got up, and she said to me, I don't know if it's kind of mind over matter, and I know we spoke about this, some things can be mind over matter, but she says, the pain is gone. Obviously she got back up, and she was walking around doing her normal bits and pieces, and the pain obviously came back. It did come back, but for that short period of time, it did disappear. Now, as I say, maybe it's mind over matter, I don't know, but there obviously is something to it. Definitely something to it.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of people have reported that either they cured the snoring or their back pain, or I mean, again, these are all people that have on the documentary saying what they reported.
Yeah.
So it's worth doing it. The only thing that we don't have, which we'll have to try and get sometime, is our multimeters that we have do not go down to that low of a millivolt.
You've got to spend 100 or so quid to get the right type of meter.
Well, they actually have on YouTube. I don't know whether you heard me saying it earlier. For 39 sterling on Amazon.co.uk, they actually have an earthing kit, and they have a multimeter which actually goes down to 1 millivolt, which you can use as part of the earthing kit. Now, it mightn't be great, but at the end of the day, all you're doing is taking a voltage reading. So, you know, it might do the job. I mean, for people who don't have a lot of money.
We have to assume people are on a budget.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, 39, you could try that. I mean, that's probably the one we're going to look at, 39 sterling, with the earthing kit as well, and just see how that goes.
That's very interesting, because that price is really good. Please send me a link to it, because there are other things you can do with it. For instance, you can tell the body voltage in order to determine whether you're well or not, because depending on what voltage your various parts of the body are reading determines your health. The pH of your body is directly related to the voltage.
I know on the documentary, Clive, he has the black pin or the ground pin of the probe of the multimeter connected to earth, and then the other one is kind of connected to the body with, say, a piece of metal or just holding the probe. But from what you're saying there, to determine the body voltage, would that be done the same way, or are both probes held in your hands, or how is that done?
The one I've got doesn't do millivolts, so I haven't been able to actually do it myself. There's a book called Healing is Voltage by Jerry Tennant, and I've only read about it rather than actually done that. So I'm not 100% sure what you're meant to do.
Yeah. No, but then again, it's kind of frightening, because when you said to us there earlier that you have done some testing and your body voltage was up in around 25 volts, again, that's kind of that's frightening, because from what we've seen in the documentary, everything was kind of millivolts, and I think the highest the guy went up to was possibly like 3 volts or something, and you're going up as far as 25. I mean, that's...
Yeah, if you've got a powerful power source, yes.
Yeah. And would you find... I mean, I'm guessing... This is, again, I don't know this to be true, but this is kind of hypothetical. But when you have a build-up like that in your body, if you're not kind of earthing every now and again, then obviously my understanding is that sometimes when you reach for something and you get a little spark and, you know, you get that kind of static electricity discharge, is that... Would you reckon that's the body holding onto that voltage, and then when you touch something like that, it's just discharged fairly quickly? So there obviously is a build-up, would you say, in the body?
I'm not an expert, but I don't think so, and I think that's more likely to be nylon or something like that having an effect.
Just static build-up or something.
I think so.
Yeah, I've just sent you over that link, Clive, regarding the offer that Amazon are doing regarding the meter and the earthing kit. I've also put it in the chat room for MSI and the OYM chat room as well, so everybody can have a look at that deal and what they're selling regarding the multimeter and the earthing kit.
Don't buy them all though, please leave one for us.
And I'm not an agent of Amazon, and I do not get commission. We're just passing on the information. You can have a look at that. Now, there are expensive meters out there that are really, really good meters. You know, you're talking about 100 and odd quid. But if something like that can be used, again, all you need to do is get down. It needs to be able to check the voltage, the millivoltage, because your body's voltage is quite low, and the millivolts, so you need to check it in millivolts. And again, if you watch a number of YouTube videos out there, you see these guys with meters, and one guy actually had a meter, and he took a reading in his bare feet at the back of his house, and then all he did was go to the front of his house underneath the electrical pylons, and the electricity level, the millivolts, went straight up, purely by going to the front of his house, standing underneath the electrical lights in his road. And a lot of people are not aware of this. They're not sensitive to it. They don't understand what's going on, and it's just a concern that if these things are affecting us, that we should be aware of it. And if you have the technology to do that, again, it's a practical exercise that you can show people. You can say, right, I'm going to check the voltage of your body, and then get a plug bar, plug it in, and then get them to put the hand over, and then check their electricity again, and then show them the increase of voltage in their body. And because they're not natural, that's not natural. So I think that's part and parcel of maybe where we're getting the issues regarding EMF and Wi-Fi frequencies affecting us as well. All these things are not natural; they're not found in nature.
With those really high-powered cables that are strung across the country, you can go under there with a strip light and it'll light up in your hand.
That's right. Well, we had an issue here around our local area here where they were kind of campaigning to bury the pylons, and they actually had a photograph of people with the strip lights, with their hands in the air with the strip light, and the strip light coming on just underneath the electricity pylons. So, and then when I seen that, I started thinking of Nikola Tesla and free energy.
Yeah, no, absolutely spot on. Yeah, I mean, I've seen that as well, and I think a lot of you do see a lot of kind of magicians do that trick as well. But yeah, I mean, it's not really a trick, really. It's just whatever's in these fluorescent tubes, it just reacts to the forces outside. I mean, again, it's a great little party trick, but it also proves that there are forces at work that we cannot see.
Exactly, yeah. Well, I know, I don't know how true this is, but I did come across, I don't know whether there's a video or information regarding a guy who actually tapped into this, and he did convert the energy and use it. And obviously the electricity company, I think, were trying to doing for staining electricity, but it wasn't staining electricity. He was using the energy generated from the pylons.
Sorry, who was that directed at?
Oh, just talking in general. I don't know whether I don't know whether you came across that. People using energy like that.
Well, free electricity would be handy, wouldn't it?
Well, it would be, yeah. I think we'd have to look at Nikola Tesla and see what he has. There is a lot more free energy devices coming out at the moment. A lot more people coming out with them, and because we know, across the board, that it's been hidden for a long time. But we're just moving away from where we should be going. But we have a few minutes left, Clive. So for our listeners, obviously, you gave out the websites that you recommended. Can you just give out that list of websites again for our listeners?
Sure. Earthclinic.com, Mercola.com, DoctorYourself.com, CureZone.com.
That's it, yep.
There was the other one.
Yeah, probably.
The other one you gave out as well was, I'm going to pronounce it wrong, APOTICARIA.com. I cannot pronounce it. What I do apologise.
Yeah, that was the company who sells the sulphur.
Yeah.
The turpentine.
The turpentine. I'm still trying to get my head around that, how turpentine can be used and ingested to help you. Because we're so conditioned to believe that, well, that's for, it's a pain stripper, you shouldn't be, taking that.
Well, it comes from the pine tree. It's very powerful stuff, clearly.
And have you tried it? Have you come across anybody that has actually tried it and used it?
No, but I've read a lot about it. So much so that I was seriously considering putting it on the site, which is why I know where to get it from.
Okay, okay. Well, that'd be interesting.
You see, the reason why is the parasite thing. I mean, did you know that people killed in motorcycle accidents have 5 times more of one particular parasite called Toxoplasma gondii than normal people?
And why is that?
Well, it appears that Toxoplasma gondii changes the brain and makes people reckless.
But would this be the same? You get some people who are junkies, danger junkies, and they do all this, dangerous stuff, like it could be paragliding or bungee jumping, and there is some people have this chemical or have this where they love the danger, they love the risk. Would that be the same thing?
Well, it could be. How it works is that it's a parasite that's found naturally in cats, but it can jump species. So if a rat gets it, it changes the rat's brain, so now the rat is attracted to the smell of cat's urine, and therefore dies. And so if Toxoplasma gondii gets into the human brain, it appears to make people reckless, just like the rats became reckless.
Well, we heard something like this based on the MMS and the fact that people who got affected by, you get the old lady who has 12 cats, and when she took MMS and, all her worms were cleared out, she kind of said, hang on a minute, where did all these cats come from? It's something got to do with affecting her brain.
Exactly, cats, and this parasite.
Right, I've got 2 cats. I think they're going tomorrow.
You've got 2 cats. You haven't got 20 cats.
I won't be getting 20.
But there are many ways to deal with parasites, and it does seem that turpentine is about the strongest of the lot. But a kinder way is to use essential oils. But of course, one's got to be very, very careful where you get the essential oils from. And if essential oils are made properly, in an absolutely pure manner, you can take them internally, and you could take, for instance, the thieves' blend of herbs. Do you know about the thieves' blend?
No, I haven't heard of that.
When the Black Death was going around, what happened was that when everybody had died in a house and there was nobody else, they called "Bring out your dead." And if there was nobody else left, they didn't bother to board up the house, even if the people were rich, because nobody dared go in because they might catch the plague. So this didn't deter a band of thieves who eventually got caught after robbing all the rich houses. And the judge said, look, we're going to torture you, but we won't torture you, we'll just hang you if you tell us how you did it. And they explained that they did it with essential oils. They wrapped like a big handkerchief round their mouth, and they breathed in oil of oregano, thyme, rosemary and clove, I think it was. And that was enough to protect them against essentially all infectious diseases. And the same thing still works today, and it kills parasites as well.
Very good. Do you have any suggestions? I mean, obviously I'm a cat owner. What do you recommend we do to stop something like that from happening?
Sorry, something like what? Getting parasites?
Well, getting parasites or anything like that.
Shoot the cats.
You can't avoid parasites. I mean, let's say you can. Let's say there are parasites in the fish that you're eating or the meat that you're eating. All you've got to do is get an ozone generator. We sell them on the site for 30-something quid. And you get a bowl of water and you put the meat or fish into the bowl, and you bubble ozone, which is oxygen-3, O3. You bubble ozone through it for a minute or two, and any parasites that were living in the flesh are dead. So you can get rid of some parasites, but if you stroke a dog, you might get a parasite. It's as simple as that.
So it's just to look at the draw, really, and that's all animals, really. Obviously, all animals can get parasites.
Yeah, and they're on plants.
Okay.
We've all got parasites to a greater or lesser degree, but with some of us, the parasites are killing us.
Well, I know we've obviously heard, again, through MMS about the worms that are in our intestine. And I know they had great success with kids that have autism, and they're using the MMS to clear out the worms. And they've had some great success with that. So maybe that's the same thing.
Well, the thing is that MMS is a very harsh way to deal with the problem. While MMS can be absolutely life-saving, and you can deal with almost anything with MMS, there are things to try first that are possibly less likely to cause a bad reaction.
And has anybody ever come to you and said, I have X, Y, and Z? I won't say what diseases, but, you know, it could be cancer or whatever, but, and they've come to you and you've made recommendations and they've come back and said, Clive, that's been fantastic.
Well, you know, I specialise in health. You know, I don't cure anything. I just work on the principle that if you're healthy, therefore you can't be ill, because they're opposites. So I teach people how to be healthy, and you know, to be honest, the results that I have, like the results of many other natural health specialists, are remarkable. People recover from all sorts of things. You know, every disease you can think of, pretty much.
That's well. We do have we do have all the cures in nature, don't we? We just have to know how to use them, and you know, and get away from the kind of diet that we have and the poisons that are in our food and in our water, really.
Well, there are cures in nature, but we've got the cure is in us. You know, we are self-repairing mechanisms. You know, we're designed to self-repair, and if we're not self-repairing, then either we've been physically damaged in some way, an accident, or we've been poisoned in some way, a toxin, a toxic thought, a toxic poison, or we're nutrient deficient, or a combination.
And of course, with the vitamins and the supplements that you're talking about, this gives the body the tools to fight what it needs to fight.
Well, it does. I mean, you know, let's say that you walk into a room and there are all sorts of infectious people around. They've got all sorts of infectious diseases. If you are nutritionally strong, if your immune system is working properly, you won't get any of them.
Okay. Yeah, I suppose, you know, if your immune system is in a good condition, then you won't get them, I suppose. And again, an oxygenated bloodstream as well is a big help.
Absolutely right.
Brilliant. Steve, do you have any questions there for Clive?
No questions, unfortunately. A lot of people on the chat there, they are talking about remedies and all sorts of various different things. All good, positive chat going on. Black seed is mentioned here as well from Jim. He says black seed is supposed to be very, very good. Do you know anything about black seed, Clive?
Yes. I think it's also known as black cumin oil, or I think it's made from Nigella, as far as I remember. And yes, it's got a fantastic reputation. I've got some in the fridge, and I have tried it, but I've not given it a real chance, and I've not given it to anybody else. So I haven't got direct experience. But yes, it's got a huge black seed oil's got a huge reputation.
Okay, that's an interesting one. I thought it might have been something to do with when I seen the comment there from Jim. I was kind of brought back. I know my wife, she's starting to cook with black lentils now. It's obviously a completely different thing. So black seed, Jim says, yeah, it's the remedy for everything but death. Yeah, worth looking into, I suppose.
That's it. You know, longevity, that's what we need. Right, one last question. We have a number of parasites in our government building. Do you have anything for them, Clive?
Yes, I do.
Can you recommend something?
Yes, that would be a whole other program.
Well, listen, Clive, it's been great having you on. Thanks a lot for coming back on at short notice, and I'm glad we've got part 2 done, because we said we'd do part 2, and I'm sure there's a part 3 somewhere down the line, but we'll get to that when we need to get to it. Again, thanks a lot for coming on. Great information, and I hope everybody in the chat room and the listeners listening in have learned some information which will hopefully improve your health. And at least, or if you know somebody that is suffering from something, you can get them to listen to the podcast and pick up what Clive said, and get them to go out and get what they need to hopefully help whatever condition they have. But so Clive, thanks a lot for coming on. I'll pass you over to Steve, and Steve will do the roundup, and we'll get all your details off you. Over to you, Steve.
Okay, well, there's no point in me really doing the roundup. Clive has given us some great information, some great websites. And again, I just want to throw a plug for your own site there, Clive, ancientpurity.com, ancientpurity.com. I've been checking out your site there during the show, and I have to say, as I said it before, there's just so much information on it. It would probably take a week to go through all the information. But definitely worth checking out. And I mean, the fact that you've come on, you've shared all this information, I would suggest that, if anybody is maybe thinking of trying out something that you mentioned, that, their first stop should be your site there, ancientpurity.com, because you have been so good to come on and share the information with us. Maybe they could, throw a couple of washers your way. But Clive, any closing statements that you want to share with us there?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Well, there are a couple of things. Of the hair mineral analysis people, there are two names. One's called Biolab, and the other's called Bionetics. And there are others, but those have a bit of a reputation. And the other thing is about your black lentils. If you want to increase the potency of your black lentils substantially, if you soak them for 12 hours or 24 hours and let them sprout a little bit, you'll bring them from dormant to alive. And I was reading the other day that a seed, when it's germinating, the pressure that it exerts to burst out of its shell is up to 300 atmospheres.
Wow. That's unbelievable.
So that, you're possibly increasing the nutrient content of the lentil by 500-fold, or I'm just guessing at the number, but by a huge amount just by sprouting it.
Wow, I think I'll be coming down to your house.
Just a very quick one on that. If you're going to do that and it's increasing the potency by that amount, would that be still okay to give to young children? Because my daughter now, she's 11 months old, and generally whatever we eat, she eats as well. Would that be okay?
Yeah, absolutely fine.
Perfect.
Brilliant.
Okay.
All right, Clive, thanks again for coming on. We'll go over to a musical break. And are we ready there? Yeah, cool. Okay, and we will be back after this.
Join UnitedWeStrike.com radio on the second Saturday of every month for our live international radio marathon. Don't buy, don't comply, ask why.
Okay, and we're back again. That was another track from Providence. That is the album, the CD by Alan Carner. That was the short version, the very, very short version of Sick of These Wolves. If you want to hear the long version, that's 4.5 minutes by the album.
Well, right, okay, just a couple of things we're going to catch up on. I had a Skype with Ricky Simpson yesterday, and we're going to try and hook up the administrator of the Phoenix Tears website with Dr. Philip Michael, who was on the show, and we're going to try and get the two of them talking to each other regarding the cannabis oil, and we're going to see what we can do with that. We'll keep you posted. Again, another thing, there's a new movie that's out called Turbo, the Turbo movie. It's a kids' cartoon movie. And I don't know whether you've seen it, but if you notice in the background, they have chemtrails in the sky.
Yes, I haven't seen it, but I have been in the room where it was being watched. And yes, I did happen to notice chemtrails in the sky. The same as with the other Disney movie, Cars. And I believe, I didn't see Cars 2, but I did see, my son was watching Cars. And that was one of the things I noticed as well, that there's chemtrails. I think they're disguised as tire tracks, but they're chemtrails in the sky in that movie as well.
Isn't it funny, isn't it?
It's amazing, because we said it before, you keep putting it out there in front of people, and all of a sudden they're so bombarded with it that it just becomes accepted as the norm. Exactly.
Again, thanks a lot for people who donate. We did just receive a donation during the show there. Thanks again for helping us out. We're hopefully going to replace the software when we receive enough funds, because people who are tuned in and ready to go at the start of the show obviously heard silence for a bit. We had a software crash and we just had to restart everything, and we just want to upgrade the software. It's just not happening. We had about 4 crashes during the week with the software, and there's something going on, and we just need to get rid of it and just get an update. So if you can, again, if you have a few shekels, a few washers, that would be a big help. We'll try and replace the software and get that sorted, and fingers crossed, solve the problem that we're having with it. So that's great. But so next week, on next week's show, we have a chap called Lark Rosen. Now, Lark Rosen was on as far as I know, was on the, I remember seeing Lark Rosen, he was on the Freedom to Fascism DVD. And if you were Aaron Russo, he's one of the people that was, I believe, talking about the tax and that you don't have to pay tax. So basically, we want to try and get him in. Larkin Rose. He goes under different names, and his Skype name is different to something else on UWS and everything else. Larkin Rose. But he was on the Freedom to Fascism DVD. If you have a look at that, he was talking about that you don't have to pay tax. So that plan of attack is to get Larkin on next Sunday, and we'll talk to him, and maybe talk to him about income tax and find out, do we have to pay it and what's going on. And along with all other, I believe he covers a lot of other subjects as well.
Yeah, he has a lot of good videos out there. There's actually one about anarchy, and there's one about the dot being the tiny dot, and you can just look them up on YouTube. They're there. Yeah, Larkin Rose, he's some good information videos. And while I have the microphone, I have to apologise profusely to Snowy. I didn't get to ask your question. I am very, very sorry with that. You can stop crying now, and thanks for the cheesecake.
Yeah, thanks for the birthday wishes. Again, we don't know. We know the guest. We were supposed to have Claire on tonight, and she did promise that she'd be on, but obviously something happened and she's not on. So, again, apologies for the listeners who were going to tune in and listen to Claire. We didn't know ourselves till an hour before we went live, hence why we had to get Clive on to do the show, and we didn't hear anything from Claire, so we didn't know whether she was going to be on. So it was kind of a mad panic to get somebody on, and Clive offered, and we were going to do a part 2 with Clive anyway, which is brilliant information. Clive has always been, the last time he was on, had great information as well, and he just asked us there during the break to let him know when the podcast will be available. So we'll have it up and running probably in about half an hour to an hour after the show. That's the plan of attack, if the software doesn't crash. Fingers crossed. But that's the news anyway. I'll just say to everybody, thanks again. Once again, we are humbled for people who just donate to the radio show and like what we do. I mean, we really do appreciate it. We will try and get quality people on, quality guests on, as much as we can. And we cover all areas. I mean, we cover all areas. We don't just stick to one area. We cover all areas. And I'm not saying that we're going to be a coast-to-coast or anything, but if you look at like coast-to-coast in America, they have an audience of about 5 million, and they cover literally everything, all subjects, because you have to have an open mind. That's the whole idea of Open Your Mind Radio. Have an open mind and listen to what people have to say, and then make your own mind up. Don't be conditioned to what they tell you through the media. Make your own mind, do your own research, check it out, and then form your own opinion based on what you hear. That's all we ask, and that's all we try and do here at OYM. Anything to add to that, Steve?
No. Well, yeah, you're right in what you say. There was a post earlier on saying that when we were discussing all the vitamins that maybe we should get in some vitamins and kind of supply them. But I did say that that's not something that we would generally do. We're not going to start recommending one product over another product. At the end of the day, we couldn't just get the information. I can't remember that line. It was in the Starsky and Hutch remake. But Huggy Bear said it's just we get the info, we lay it out for y'all to play it out, something like that. So yeah, we just get the information, we put it out there. We don't put any promises on it. We don't make any promises. We just put the information out there, and it's up to each individual to take whatever they want out of it. I say some of the stuff we talk about, it may resonate with one person, it may not resonate with the next person. But even with the grounding, I mentioned that during the week to a certain individual, and well, I wasn't actually laughed at, but let's just say I felt like I was being sneered at. But yeah, you can mention it to someone else, and they'll go, "Oh, must try that." I've tried it myself, and even as Clive said, I didn't really notice any long-term benefits. It did cure my shoulder problem when I tried it initially, but that came back. But I do when I'm sitting at the PC. I'm grounded all the time now, and I think it can only do good. But that's just me. I'm not saying it's a way of life where everyone should do it. We don't make any promises here at OYM. We just lay it out. Oh, I'm watching the time. Jeez, you know what?
Come now, ladies and gents, please. It's way beyond the time.
Alan's watching the time.
We have Vin coming up next, I believe, on MSI Radio, and subjects are always great over there. So take care of yourself. This is Alan James. Have a good time. Have a good week. Take it easy. Stay safe. Catch you later.
Okay, and for myself, Stephen George, in super stereophonic stereo sound, we'll say goodnight, and we'll catch you all again next week. Take care. Bye-bye.